Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Asgardians, mutants, loyal Imperial citizens, rebel scum, just everybody really. Welcome one and all to this video today. Now this is just going to be kind of a short, quick video today, a little break from regular programming, just to share some thoughts on the current state of, well, really the two main games that I play. So Marvel Strike Force, and of course also Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, maybe some Raid Shadow Legends in there too. But really, I think a lot of these sentiments are going to apply to all free-to-play kind of gacha model games that are out there. Now really, I was inspired to make this video today by something that happened recently, last week actually, and that was content creator Philosopher posted a video announcing that he was quitting the game. He was leaving Marvel Strike Force. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Philosopher. If you're not familiar with him, I would definitely advise you to check him out, even though the kind of current status of his channel is sort of in flux at the moment, I guess, because he's, as I say, he's not playing Marvel Strike Force anymore. But he is a great content creator. He produced some really amazing videos for Marvel Strike Force, some of the best videos out there, I think, with some really great advice for players, beginner players, mid-game players, and end-game players alike, and some really fantastic infographics. I really have enjoyed his content over the years, the last year in particular, and definitely his hints and tips and advice, and his infographics in particular, have really informed how I have played the game and how I've built my teams, especially around dark dimensions. So first of all, I want to thank him for that. And again, you know, I do recommend that you check him out if you play Marvel Strike Force and you haven't checked him out already, because even though he's not going to be making any new videos for Marvel Strike Force, there's still a lot of good stuff on his channel. So do seek him out and check him out if you get the chance. But I just wanted to, I was inspired by that video really to just sort of comment on, you know, Philosopher's reasons for leaving the game, and sort of what they made me think about in terms of reflecting upon, you know, the current state of Marvel Strike Force. But this also applies to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Raid Shadow Legends, and as I said, a lot of other games, free-to-play gacha games that are out there. So if you go and watch that video, you'll see that one of the main reasons that Philosopher gave for leaving Marvel Strike Force, well, he gave a couple of big reasons, but one of the main ones, because Philosopher also plays Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, I should point out. So one of his major complaints with Marvel Strike Force at the moment was that if you compare it to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, a lot of the characters are much, they're harder to get, they're less accessible in Marvel Strike Force. This is what he's saying. And, you know, he's not wrong, right? We have a lot of characters in Marvel Strike Force that are just not farmable. And these aren't brand new characters, right? I'm not talking about the Horsemen. I'm talking about characters that have been in the game for 18 months, and they're still not farmable. We're still relying upon drops from orbs, random drops from orbs, and sometimes blitzes if we're lucky, in order to be able to get shards for these characters. Now, you know, if you're lucky enough to be there when they're initially introduced, you maybe stand a good chance of unlocking that character, but for new players, some of these characters are just completely inaccessible. They're really just relying upon these random drops to get some of the best characters in the game. And Philosopher was comparing that to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and the model that exists in that game, right? Where, you know, when we get new characters in the game, yes, they're not farmable for a while. Obviously, you know, Scopely and Capital Games need to make money on these games somehow, and that's how they do it, right? Getting you to pay for packs to unlock these characters initially. But they become farmable within a few months, normally within about 3 months in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. All characters, excluding legendaries, obviously, regular characters are farmable in the game. And then after they've been farmable for a certain amount of time, normally around a year, they become double drop characters. Now, the exception, of course, is ships. I do not know why they haven't made some of the old ships farmable in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. There's absolutely zero reason why new players should be, you know, struggling to farm IG-2000, for example. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I digress. And he was kind of comparing these two models, right? So we have these characters in Marvel Strike Force who have been in the game for a long time, important characters that you just really cannot access. You're just waiting on luck. If you actually want to power them up, and to be at the top of the game you need to power some of these characters up, then you have to spend money. And he was comparing that to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, where the characters, generally speaking, are more accessible. Now, I absolutely do agree with that. That's a great observation. I think that the characters, generally speaking, are more accessible for farming in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Now, that's not to say that Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, of course, doesn't have a bunch of other problems, and Philosopher wasn't saying that either. There are a bunch of other issues with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, particularly the gear crunch, which I think is much more pronounced in Galaxy of Heroes than it is in Marvel Strike Force. It's a lot easier once you have unlocked those characters. It's a lot easier to take them up to higher gear levels. Of course, in Marvel Strike Force, there's no star limit, so you can unlock a character at 2 stars, and you can take them all the way up to gear 17. It's not the case in Galaxy of Heroes, right? In Galaxy of Heroes, you need to 7-star that character before you can take them up to gear 12 and then relic them beyond that. So that I think is a kind of barrier to progress. But there are multiple issues with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes as well. But I do think the Philosopher's right about this. The characters, generally speaking, the farming situation in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes is a lot better than the farming situation in Marvel Strike Force. So that was one of his kind of main gripes. And kind of going off the back of that, the issue that the Philosopher really brought up in his video is that in order to progress in Marvel Strike Force, it's not only, okay, a new character's dropped, you need to be able to unlock that character, but you need to be able to unlock specific teams. And I think the whole Apocalypse kind of event is a good example of that, right? Where you really needed, in order to guarantee the ability to unlock those horsemen, you needed entire squads that needed to be up at a particular level. And you're talking several squads in order to unlock these individual characters, and often squads that are new, right? So not only do you potentially have to pay to power up a brand new toon, you potentially have to pay to power up an entire squad of new toons. And the rate of new characters being added to Marvel Strike Force, by the way, is a little bit insane. So you can see, I think, on that first shot that I had up there talking about Spider Weaver, who's going to be added to the game. I am actually excited about Spider Weaver, but we've also got Mr. Negative, we've got Brawn about to be added, we've got Red Hulk, so many characters incoming, it's really hard to stay on top of all of this stuff. And you add to that the mystery that we don't necessarily know when these characters drop, what we're going to need them for. And that's a lot of pressure, right? These characters, they're coming in really fast. We don't really know how we get them. Often it's obscure. Often you need to spend money to guarantee the unlock. And then in order to you don't know how you're going to need to use them in the game. There are certain game content, game modes, other legendary characters that you can unlock only with these new characters, and often with multiple new characters. That is a lot of pressure. So I totally understand where Philosopher is coming from here. And don't get me wrong, this video is in no way a critique of Philosopher's decision to leave the game. I absolutely support that. Not that he needs my support or anyone's support. You can, stop and start playing these games whenever you like, of course. But I think that's a really good and valid point here, right? That Marvel Strike Force has some real issues, I think, right now with character overload and with what it's asking of players. You really need to commit a huge amount in terms of money and a huge amount in terms of time in order to stay up on top of things in this game. And while I don't think that is exactly the same in Marvel Strike Force or in Raid Shadow Legends, for example, I do play Raid Shadow Legends a little bit, but I'm not going to talk about that much because it's not, I don't play it the same way I play the other games, but certainly, I feel that they don't have that issue either. They're, you can have a lot of fun, huge areas of the game that are open without having to focus on specific characters. But I do think this is an issue that Marvel Strike Force, this is kind of a pothole that Marvel Strike Force seems to be falling into. Secondly, the packs. I think increasingly the packs that they need you to spend money on in Marvel Strike Force are incredibly expensive, and more, and I was looking at this when we had recently the Bionic Avengers, and then now the Gamma team that we've got kind of coming into the game. Increasingly, they're asking you to pay large amounts of money for packs that are what I kind of call these gambling packs, right? So you're paying a lot of money, $50, $100, for a pack that doesn't even guarantee a number of shards for that character. It might guarantee shards, but not a certain number. They're selling it saying you can get a 180, you can get 300 shards, but in reality, the chances are you're probably going to get 12, maybe 18 shards of that character. Now, $50 for 100 shards of a character, or 50 shards, or however many shards it is, if they're clearly saying this many dollars equals this many shards, I think that's just obviously a much more straightforward way to sell product in the game, right? Then you can make an informed decision. Are those shards worth the number of dollars I'll be spending? If you're just paying for a chance, it's really hard for consumers, for players of the game, to make that decision. Now, obviously, I understand why Scopely do this, why CG do this as well. That it makes sense for them, right? They get people spending money on things on the hope that they're going to get a large shard pull, and then at the end of the day, they don't, so then they have to spend again. I totally get why it makes sense for them. I don't necessarily think it's fair on the consumers, especially when there's sort of a need. If you want to stay on top of things in the game, you really need to unlock these characters. That seems kind of predatory to me. So I do totally understand, Philosopher's gripe there, and I understand the gripes that we're seeing from a lot of other members of the community, people who are end game players, top game players, who are really struggling with this. So, why am I making this video? Am I just trying to echo Philosopher's points here? Am I just commenting on someone, a big content creator, leaving the game? Well, no. I think what I wanted to reflect on is kind of a comment the Philosopher made at the very end of his video there. And he says a lot more than this in the video. I'm just kind of picking out some points that stood out to me. But a comment that he makes at the very end of the video is he says, that if you're trying to stay on top of things, if you're trying to stay at the top in Marvel Strike Force, right now it's just untenable. It's just untenable. They're asking you to spend huge amounts of money or huge amounts of time, right? You need to be on the game at specific times, and depending, on where you are, maybe those specific times are really inconvenient. Maybe they're in the middle of the night for you, or maybe they're just in the middle of the day and you're at work, right? People have lives, they have jobs and families, things that they're working on here, school, whatever it is, and that really is kind of unfair, that there should be a way to progress in the game, there should be a way to stay on top in the game without it having to totally take over your life and drain your wallet. And I absolutely agree with that. Now, I do think that, pay to win, that's kind of the model of all of these games, right? And I think we don't have to like it, but I think it kind of makes sense. If people are willing to spend thousands of dollars on these games, if they're willing to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, specifically to be, the first people to advance with something, to be attacking an enemy at a certain time in war, then you know what? I think you should get rewards for that. You should be better than me, because I certainly don't do those things. I think that is fair. That's kind of part of the pay-to-play model. However, I do agree with Philosopher that, it shouldn't be the only way to advance, and it shouldn't be the only way to stay on top of things. And that's really the point that I want to make here. Whilst I completely understand, Philosopher's gripes with the game, the gripes generally, the kind of discontent that is in the Marvel Strike Force and the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes communities at the moment, and the Gacha game communities at large. There isn't a game out there, Raid Shadow Legends, whatever else, there isn't a game out there that doesn't have people who are upset at it right now. Whilst I completely understand all of that, this is what I'm going to say. You don't need to stay on top of everything, right? These are games, and we play them to have fun. Now, I again, absolutely respect Philosopher leaving and absolutely understand everybody's gripes. And I do understand if you have been at the top of this game, if you are, some of the first people to finish Dark Dimension 5, for example, as Philosopher was. I don't remember what he was. He was in the top 10, certainly, first people to finish Dark Dimension 5. I totally get if you've been in that elite level, you're probably not going to enjoy falling down and no longer being able to be on top of things like that. I totally get it. However, for those of us who have never been at that level, and I definitely include myself in this, right? I call myself a kind of mid-game player, or I make mid-game content. I'm not, there's no real definition of where beginning, mid-game, and end-game exists for any of these games. By some definitions, I'm definitely an end-game player for Marvel Strike Force and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, but I don't invest in them. I do spend some money on them, but not a lot of money. We're talking maybe a couple of $100s a year, and certainly time-wise, I don't play them as seriously as other people do, so I'm not an end game level player in that regard, and most of my content, I would say, is more mid level content. That's what I pride myself on making, right? Most of it is free-to-play content. Most of it is mid-game content. And I think for people at that level, there is still a ton to enjoy in Marvel Strike Force, in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and in Raid Shadow Legends. You don't have to stay on top of absolutely everything in order to enjoy these games. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because I don't want people, beginner players or mid-level players, to watch some of these videos like Philosopher's video, which is a great video, by the way. He, goes through a lot in the game and explains his reasons for leaving. But I don't want people to watch that video and then think, oh, there's no point in me playing the game then. And again, that's not what Philosopher says. He does make this point at the end of the video. I just want to echo it here. There is a lot of fun to be had in these games at the mid level. You don't have to be on top of everything. Are you going to be the best? No, you're absolutely not. And the bottom line is, in any of these games, you're never going to be the best unless you're willing to invest literally thousands of dollars. If you're not willing to invest literally thousands of dollars in these games, you're not going to be the best. You're not going to be in the top 10 of anything in any of these games. You have to be okay with that, I think, when you're coming in to play these games. As long as you're okay with it, you can just not worry and be happy. Or keep calm and carry on grinding, right? Now, part of the way to achieve this, I think, is to set yourself goals. Back in the day, I used to play a lot of Paradox strategy games. Obviously, they're still making strategy games. I used to play them back in the day. One of the things I loved, this is going on a slight tangent, but it links back. One of the things I loved about Paradox strategy games, Hearts of Iron, Europa Universalis, things like that, is that, they didn't necessarily have, they had an end point, but they didn't necessarily have victory points in the same way things like Civilization did, right? Where you were specifically going for a goal. You could play Hearts of Iron. Yeah, sure, if you're playing as one of the big superpowers, you were maybe trying to, completely destroy the other superpower in the Second World War, dominate the planet, whatever you were trying to do. But you could play as a middling power, you could play as a tiny power, and you're never going to do that. The whole point of that game is you had to set yourself your own targets, your own goals, and that's kind of how you won, right? Maybe you were just trying to stay alive. Maybe you were just trying to dominate a neighbor. Maybe you were trying to get big enough to influence global affairs. It didn't really matter. You could play on that kind of lower level and just have fun doing whatever you were doing, whatever your particular goal was. And that is the way I kind of advocate people playing these games right now. So, my goal right now, I'll choose a particular team and I'm powering it up. Now, in both of these games, right, Marvel Strike Force and in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Raid Shadow Legends, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing enough to feel confident focusing on that. I've been playing it for a little while, but I'm still not 100% up on everything there. There's a lot to keep track of over these different games, right? But Marvel Strike Force and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, I have specific teams that I'm focusing on right now, and I have reasons for powering them up, right? Maybe I'm going to use them in Grand Arena in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, or maybe I'm going to use them in, Cosmic Crucible, War Defense, but I've got specific reasons for powering up each of these teams in the various games, but I've just set myself that goal. Now, that may or may not align with the larger goal that Scopely or CG is trying to push me toward, right? So, preparing for Apocalypse, or, trying to unlock a Galactic Legend, for example, they may or may not align. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But one of the good things about these games, I think, is that there is a lot of content, a lot of fun to be had at that middle level if you set yourself your own goal and just focus on that. You're never going to be in the top, but you can still have a lot of fun at this middle level. So, really, that was all I wanted to do with this video, was just kind of, reflect upon the fact I'm sad Philosopher is leaving, but obviously I 100%, endorse his decision. I hope he actually starts making content for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I don't know if he's going to do that, but, I think that'd be really great to see. And I do encourage you guys to check him out, even though he's no longer making MSF content. But I also just wanted to, reflect on, even though in some ways this is sort of a sad time for the game, and I do think both of these games, the main two games that I'm talking about, Marvel Strike Force and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, they do have issues. In some ways they are in tricky spots, each of them slightly different tricky spots. I still think there's a lot to love about each of these games, and I still think as long as we focus on the fact that they're games, we focus on the fact on having fun with them, that there's lots of different ways to win, and that if you're okay playing at this mid-level and just enjoying the content, you can still have a lot of fun. I still think there's a lot of future to both of these games. And I guess, you know, there are a lot of videos out there that are kind of negative right now, and amongst all of that, I just wanted to throw out a video that hopefully it's a little reflective. I don't know how positive it is. Hopefully I was saying that, you know, it's going to have a more positive, upbeat tone to it. I hope it does. It's maybe a little more reflective than that. But, you know, if you've made it to the end of this video, I know it's a little bit rambly. Said it was going to be short. It's now not particularly short. But, you know, I want to be positive here. I'm really, really enjoying both of these games. I really hope you are too. I think there's a lot to enjoy here as long as we just, you know, keep calm, carry on grinding, don't worry, be happy, just enjoy the games at the mid-level, enjoy what they have to offer, and don't stress too much about being the best and about being on top of everything. Set yourself some goals, stick with those goals, but above all, have fun. And that includes leaving the game like Philosopher did if it's no longer fun for you. If it's no longer making you happy, then of course you can absolutely leave. But I don't think it's your only option right now. I still think there is a lot to enjoy. Well, there you go. Those are kind of my reflections right now, just on the state of Marvel Strike Force, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and Gacha games in general. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments on this, both on, you know, Philosopher, you know, what you think with people like Philosopher leaving these games, and what you think about the current state of Marvel Strike Force, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Raid Shadow Legends, and basically any other game that you play. Do let me know down below. Well, there you go. That's it. That's our break. We'll return to normal programming in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, found it informative or entertaining in any way, please consider giving it a like, a thumbs up down below. And while you're here, why not consider subscribing? I don't normally drop rambly videos like this. Normally it's gameplay videos for mainly Marvel Strike Force and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and I would love to have you along for the ride. Well, that is all from me today. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, look after each other.